Imogen here. So happy you found this rather unusual body of work. To share more of the story behind this album, I'm going to hand over to my very talented wildlife filmmaker, storyteller and biologist friend, Dan O'Neill. We collaborated together for many months, and I found the whole experience deeply inspiring, with the animals leading the way in rhythm, texture and melody. Plus, Dan's also rather a hoot too, which made the whole project pretty dreamy. Okay, over to you, Dan.
Thanks, Imogen. Welcome to Chordata Bytes 1, the first of this double album created in collaboration between Imogen and myself. Imogen harnessing the music, and I, the animals. Our creative partnership was born on the Audible original podcast, Climate of Change, where this music accompanied co-hosts Kate Blanchett and Danny Kennedy in discussion with some of the world's leading voices in climate science, storytelling, advocacy, and tech. But behind these tracks is a much deeper story, and one we're so excited to share with you. Each of the following 12 pieces are not only inspired by their own unique natural history stories, but are initiated and created using the sounds captured from those stories' characters, recorded on location in the planet's wildest places, from my personal adventures over the last decade and those I've collected from colleagues along the way. I presented them as a sonic package, each a folder of weird and wonderful sounds which Imogen combed through to find her initial spark for each piece, whether that be the pattern of a bat's wings beating or a tiger growl becoming a bass line. A song would then emerge, and here they are. Evolution. Why are we here? We could be the first species in the universe to have asked that question of ourselves. It's a question that's led us to study philosophy and science, to find religions, to go to war, and has even taken us into space. We may not yet know the why, but we do know the how. It's the natural world's greatest tool, the constant process of evolution. Theorized by Charles Darwin and Alfred Russel Wallace in the 19th century, evolution is responsible for the speed of a hummingbird's wings, the grisly parasitism of the cuckoo, whose call begins this piece, and nightjar's ability to see in the dark, for bats, whose wing beat took Imogen to build this track into a waltz pattern, and for the immense power of the human brain. A lost world. This collaboration between music and wildlife and the friendship that Imogen and I found from it is largely thanks to one very remote river in Guyana in the north of South America called the Rewa. We'd exchanged hopes of finding a way to work together, perhaps even adventure together. But it was a few years before, when I was lying in a hammock early in the morning on expedition, about 300 miles from civilization, listening to the deafening symphony of the Amazon, that these ideas first began to form. One of the planet's last remaining wild frontiers, known as the Land of Giants, and the inspiration behind Arthur Conan Doyle's work, The Lost World. Guyana is perhaps an unsurprising source of creativity. This track revisits and reimagines that expedition through the same sounds of that morning in the wild. The formidable harpy eagle, which is clearly heard screeching at the pinnacle point just over a minute in on this track. The otherworldly screaming piha, torrential tropical rains, toucans, macaws, and the voices of indigenous Guyanese friends from almost a decade of adventures in the country. This is also my first, and perhaps my last, ever appearance on a musical release. Thanks, Imogen, for running with that crazy ask. Hope that recording of me singing Adele in a bathroom is nowhere to be heard again. Red in Tooth and Claw. Does true altruism exist? A controversial debate in the fields of psychology and biology, with some believing ulterior motives for personal gain be the reason for seemingly altruistic behaviours. A pretty bleak reality if true, but it's led scientists to scour the natural world for the kindest of creatures in the search of good. From Imogen's spark of a tiger's deep baseline growl and the hyena's cackle to the pygmy owl's eerie hoot and the Harris hawk's screech. Is nature really red in tooth and claw? Whales on thin ice. Our ocean may be vast and seem unchangeable, but it's actually incredibly fragile. Rising temperatures, melting sea ice, overfishing, and increasingly vulnerable marine habitats are showing our oceans are under massive stress, which will lead to a magnification of the already dangerous consequences of a changing global climate. The ocean is responsible for between 50 and 80% of the planet's oxygen production, the majority of which is coming from tiny oceanic plankton, which are extremely sensitive to changes in their environment. From those tiny ocean microorganisms to everything in the sea, on land, and in the air, this piece is inspired by our global connection to nature, with solos from the planet's greatest singers, humpback whales, whose melody opens this piece of music. Egret Island. This is where it all began, on Easter Island, a land neither of us had been to, but a hopeful retelling of its dark history was the focus of our first musical assignment together. But what creatures live there? Well, a lot of birds. And one I'd actually recorded before at a research station in the Amazon back in 2015. So Imogen had her spark, an egret. And accompanied by a myriad of other birds, the first piece came to life, and it's still one of my favourites. Nature in Flames. For millennia, many of the world's ecosystems have been shaped by fire. In parts of the world, fire is actually critical for life, with some plants only germinating after it comes. It can enrich soils and awaken seed banks, creating space for new and biodiverse generations to come. But in recent years, immense and destructive forest fires have plagued our planet. So serious they were responsible for billions of casualties. These fires may seem cataclysmic, but they're the canary in the mine, warning us to maintain nature's delicate balance. Not so great ape. In our planet's geological history, we can observe 5 mass extinction events caused by extreme temperature changes, the rise and fall of sea levels, or catastrophic chance events like supervolcanoes erupting, or most famously, an asteroid impact. Experts now believe we're in the midst of the 6th mass extinction, known as the Anthropocene, the first to be caused by just one species, us. If that isn't the perfect illustration of our immense collective power to create change, I don't know what is. In amongst the rhythmic sounds of chopping ancient rainforests and growling chainsaws, we hear indigenous voices caught in the chaos. But if us not-so-great apes can get us into this mess, we can surely get out of it. Technicolor. Nature's battle between sound and sight oftentimes means the most beautiful and intricate calls come from the most drab performers, and the best dressed make the most forgotten vocals. This challenge was to find the colour in the call from nature's most flamboyant animals: toucans, tigers, kingfishers, howler monkeys, baboons, frogs, and the spectacularly coloured scarlet macaw's guttural screech. If there's another planet out there with intelligent life looking out at the stars just like us, they might be wondering what aliens are like. Maybe we can send them this, inspired by the creatures of our world, like giant otters, beluga whales, capuchin birds, and gibbons, whose song wouldn't seem out of place light years away. Undergrowth. Wriggling, skittering, marching, and buzzing, it's time to pay respect to the unsung heroes of the undergrowth. Without insects, our lives would be very different. They pollinate our flowers, fruits, and vegetables. And as primary and secondary decomposers, they're the cleanup crew responsible for the breakdown of wastes. Insects are in fact by far the most common animals on the planet, accounting for more than 1.5 million described species, 3 times the number of all other animals combined. They may be small, but they actually keep us alive. Not so creepy after all. Electric gecko. A few years ago, while staying in a homestay in Vietnam, I heard a strange mechanical sound coming from all directions of my room. Armed with a mic, I hunted it down. It was dozens of tiny little geckos searching for their dinner. It's incredible, really, the unlikely technological sounds that the natural world can make. Some that really don't fit their picture. From the cicada's ratcheting buzz to the grumble and crack of a thunderstorm, this is nature's electronic set. A final call. In the last 100 years alone, we've lost some 500 known species. The totally unique Tasmanian tiger hunted to extinction, with the last one ending its life in Hobart Zoo in 1936. The Caspian tiger, one of the largest big cats on Earth, was last seen in the 1970s, killed by Soviet soldiers and displaced to make space for farmland. The last West African black rhinos, declared extinct officially in 2011, were predominantly killed for sport. The St. Helena darter, a beautiful dragonfly found solely on the volcanic island of St. Helena, met its demise in the 1960s due to invasive species brought by us. Their calls, and many like them, are lost forever, but we still have a world of creatures to save, and this piece is inspired by the sounds of some of the most threatened.
Thanks so much, Dan. That was great. So, hello again, whoever's ear I have on the end of this audio. Please do enjoy the music in its entirety now. And perhaps some of these images that Dan mentioned will come to mind when you listen to the following tracks. I'd very much like to thank Audible for this commission that brought Dan and I to work together. And if you haven't already heard it, please do go and check out the original Audible podcast, Climate of Change, that this music was written and produced for. Okay, all the best. Catch you later on in the album.